Hi, this is Robin Sharma, author of The Leader Who Had No Title, founder of the Titan Academy, and welcome to this mastery session. This mastery session is called 9 Rules for a Monumental Life. And I'm going to get right into the first rule, which is leader, lead thyself. So leadership is not just for CEOs. Leadership is not just for prime ministers and presidents and people with large bank accounts and massive offices. Leadership is not only an opportunity, but the responsibility of every man, woman, and child on the planet today. No matter what it is you do, whether you're a filmmaker, a startup entrepreneur, a manager of a corporation, a bread creator, or whatever it's called, a baker. I guess that would be a baker. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a politician, whether you are a gardener, whether you are a wall maker, I don't know, whatever it is you do, but every day you walk out in the world gives you not only that opportunity, but brings with it the awesome responsibility to show up as a leader. Because leadership really isn't a title. You know my book, The Leader Who Had No Title, you've probably read it. Leadership is less about a title, and it's more about an approach, a way of being. And some of the traits of leaders without titles, they're radiant optimists in a world gone cynical. One of the things about leaders without titles, they don't see their job as a job. They see their job as a craft, no matter what their work is. They understand there's dignity in all labor. One of the traits of leaders without titles, they are relentlessly improving everything they touch, so they leave it better than they found it. One of the things of leaders without titles is they understand that the business of commerce is human connection and value delivery. One of the things of leaders without titles is when they get knocked down, they get back up, so they are relentless in their pursuit around their dominant obsession. And so the first rule for a monumental life is simply leader, lead thyself, which just means see yourself as a leader. And don't wait for the people around you to start leading. Lead where you're planted. Lead by example. You stand up first. Be an army of one when it comes to leadership and spreading that leadership possibility around you, okay? And really what I'm talking about is also understanding that you have a responsibility to manage yourself. You know, sometimes people say, well, my boss is grumpy and cranky and doesn't really appreciate me. One of the key ideas is people don't leave companies, they leave the people they worked with. You've heard that before. That's not my idea, that's out there. But the point on leader, lead thyself is you're responsible for managing your mindset, your heart set, your health set, your soul set. Every time you blame your boss or your husband or your wife, your past or your children, the economy or your nationality, you're giving away your power to be the change you want to see, to use the words of Mahatma Gandhi. Okay? So APR, absolute responsibility, make the leap. I've done it in a previous mastery session, the victim to leader leap. Victims give away their power to conditions. Leaders roll up their sleeves and say, if it's going to be, it is up to me. What's going on in my life? How can I manage my internal psychology and physiology and dial in those 4 interior empires so I literally fireproof my mindset, bulletproof my heart set, calibrate my health set, and develop my soul set so I literally become this force of nature and have such a strong character that no matter what happens in the world, I don't get activated. I don't feel insecure if someone else is winning. I don't get knocked off my A game if I get some bad news. I'm not a victim. I am a leader. Rule number 2, be the humblest person in every room you're in. And I challenge you with great love and respect, make that commitment to yourself and practice it daily for the remainder of your life. You see, the humblest wins. We live in a fascinating world right now. You know, the model sometimes of the great leaders are people who are the loudest in the room. You know, Susan Cain has written a beautiful book, Quiet. In a world of loud people who thump their chests, she's written about the power of being an introvert. You know, I'm part extrovert. I speak to stages. Sometimes there's 10,000 people in the room. And I travel the world doing, these videos. And I have a lot of people who follow me on the social media. But I'm also an introvert. I love nature. I love solitude. And Susan Cain, in this great book I really encourage you to read called Quiet, says you can tell an introvert versus an extrovert because extroverts get energy from being around people. Introverts refill their wells and get energy by being alone. And I only mention this because humility has got a bad rap. And we live in a world where I think the majority, the 95%, are chasing the wrong things and celebrating the wrong values. And wrong isn't the right word, but humility is gold. And if you look at the true heroes, those people all suffered so much and endured such adversity, and their heart was broken so many times, their hearts opened. To sort of paraphrase the words of the great philosopher Rumi, who said, break your heart over and over again until it opens. And if you look at the great heroes, they were the humblest in every room. Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. The people we see as the true titans and the true legends, they weren't full of ego. They weren't insecure, so they were always talking about themselves. These were people who graced the planet and walked the earth gently. These were masters of compassion, and because of that, they had the empathy to understand what people needed. These were not people who talked about themselves. These were people who shifted from me to we or to you. Here's a little exercise to play out for the rest of the week. Think about how many times you have to say I, and be very, very careful about what you need to advertise. Do you need to advertise, oh, I'm a marathon runner? Do you need to advertise, oh, we just passed 5 million on Facebook? Do you need to advertise, you just wrote the greatest bestseller? Do you need to advertise your ambitions and your ideals? Do you need to advertise when you had a win? And if so, check out that insecurity. In my book, The Greatness Guide, which I wrote many years ago, I quoted Carl Jung, and I just wrote it in a chapter, love your irritations. And in that chapter of The Greatness Guide, I say, Carl Jung taught us, beneath your irritations is the opportunity for growth. And so every time you feel insecure and you need to use I and advertise how great you are or successful are you, and you turn the conversation onto you, if you're really wise, you'll go deeper and you'll say, what is the hole within me that I haven't filled, that I'm trying to fill from external validation? Third rule for a monumental life is simply remember this. It's very important. Originality is the DNA of legendary. Another thing I'm noticing in the world right now, the 95%, the majority, and my brain tattoo, if you want the results only 5% of the population has, you've got to be willing to do what 95% of the population are not willing to do. And so most people are caught up in the cult of superficiality and immediate gratification. What they want to do is build a business that is legendary in 6 weeks. What they want to do is be super fit at Federer level within a quarter. What they want to do is build a love relationship that is remarkable in the next 6 months. Well, here's what I've learned. And I've been teaching personal mastery and leadership and working with billionaires and titans and Nike, FedEx, Starbucks, IBM, Oracle, NASA, Young Presidents Organization for going into my 3rd decade. So this isn't from a book I've read. This is from boots on the ground, with organizations and A players across the planet. Legendary takes time. And you can find yourself a gargantuan competitive advantage where you say, I'm going to think long term. I'm going to play the long game. I understand that genius and world class and legendary is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you do that, you start to raise your level of awareness. And you see your job as a craft, not just a job. And you start to say, I'm not going to put anything out into the world that is less than Steve Jobs' level. You know, Steve Jobs really wasn't an entrepreneur. He really didn't care much about the money. Steve Jobs really was an artist. And you've probably heard me share this before, but there's the great story about when in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs said, we're going to launch the first Apple Macintosh. And he said, I want this computer to be revolutionary. And when I interviewed Steve Wozniak, the co-founder and Steve Jobs' partner at a Titan Summit in Zurich a little while ago, I heard this firsthand, that Steve Wozniak wanted to create computers that were just industry, that would shake up the status quo. That was his obsession. He wanted to do things no other coder could do. And he told me Steve Jobs was an artist. And so in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs got his design team around him. And here's what he told them. This is the deliverable, guys. I want this first Apple Macintosh to be so beautiful, it brings tears to people's eyes. But the real deliverable is, I want the inside to be art. And the design team said, well, Steve, no one's going to look inside the computer. No one's going to open it up. Why don't we just focus on a world-class user experience on the outside and beautiful architecture and design? And he said, no, this is what I want. And so when his design team went to work and the engineering team went to work, they literally said, we've got to deliver on Steve's obsession. And when Steve Jobs first saw that Apple Macintosh, when it was produced, he started to cry. Because he saw the beauty of execution around his vision. And then when he saw the inside, he was moved deeply. Because Steve Jobs wasn't an entrepreneur, he was much more an artist. And they looked at his design team and he said, now I want you to sign the circuit board. And they said, why? And he said, because all artists sign their work. I don't know what you do. I don't know where you live. One thing I know for sure, maybe the world has not told you you are an artist, but I encourage you. See your work and anything you produce as poetry. And your good name is on what you're releasing to the world. And rather than putting out a lot of poetry and a lot of work, why not put out less work, but work that is legendary? And so the point I'm really trying to make on rule number 3 of creating a monumental life is originality is the DNA of legendary. Stop doing what everyone else is doing. Jean Basquiat, Miles Davis, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Stephen King, whoever it is, the people who make their mark on the world through their craft have one thing in common. They go blue ocean. They're not followers. They're leaders. They're not copiers. They're creators. I'm going to repeat that again because I see it so often. People see someone whose work they like, whose brand they like, whose books they like, and they start copying. That's coming from scarcity. That's coming from a lack of authenticity. And I understand it takes time, but this is why I always say leadership begins within. When you start to know who you are, when you start to trust your instinct, when you start to work on your craft, when you put in the time to study the masters versus steal from the masters, here's what starts to happen. Through your daily practice over many decades, you start to find a rhythm and you start to develop a voice. And then you become like Miles Davis. I was in Mauritius working on my new book, and every night after I'd finished writing for 3 hours, I'd eat great fish called capitaine, and I'd drink sparkling water with a little bit of lemon, and I'd watch the stars over the big African sky, and I'd listen to Miles Davis's autobiography. And here's what I've learned. He would play with the cool cats in New York. Dizzy Gillespie would come out to hear Miles Davis. But over time, through his influences and his relentless practice and seeing his work as a craft, he started playing in a way no one else had ever heard. Because he stopped copying and he started creating. And he earned the ability to find his own voice. And it's not until you have put in the time, find the right influences, and stop copying and have the bravery to leave the 95% and forget about your peers and what they're doing. Forget about competition. Think about creation. And remember that originality is the DNA of legendary. And if you get this one rule right, you will own the game and you'll never be bailing it in. You'll always be bringing it on. Rule number 4, to thine own self be true. You're going to say, Robin, that sounds sort of familiar. Of course, it's Shakespeare. To thine own self be true. You know, Oscar Wilde said it so much more elegantly than I ever could. He said, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. You know, Jack Welch, when he was at General Electric, one of our clients, GE, he said, never lose yourself on the way to the top. Wow, what amazing advice for you and me. Never lose yourself on the way to the top. To thine own self be true. Never betray your authenticity. Never lose your boots on the groundedness. At the Titan Summit, I teach a transformational model to the empire makers and history creators that are in the room every year. And the model is called the Titan's Decline. But if you look at BlackBerry, if you look at Nokia, if you look at Blockbuster, if you look at some of the empires of society in generations of history, these were empires that were created, but they did not last. Why? Because they were not true to what made them great. By the time they reached, this is big stuff, I suggest you with great love and respect. The Romans used to have a type of slave, and the slave had one job, to stand behind the Roman emperor, and in Latin say, memento homo, memento homo, memento homo, which translated to English simply means, remember you are just a man. And so to thine self be true means as you make your rise to legendary, don't forget what makes you great. Hard work, humility, serving your customers, working on your craft, playing the long game, understanding the genius takes decades versus good genetics. Rule number 5, institutionalize mundanity. So Angela Duckworth over at University of Pennsylvania has written a great book. I encourage you to read it. It's called Grit. And one of the terms she uses is from a lot of the researchers who understand exceptional performance. And the word they use is mundanity, and mundanity simply speaks to the phenomenon that genius is less about these genetics and natural talent. Genius is much more about what you do every single day. Those mundane things that seem like they're not important, the little improvements in your work, the little running of your daily habits. I've taught this for 20 years. And the brain tattoo I've taught for 20 years. I wrote about it in the Leader Who Had No Title. I wrote about it in the Greatness Guide. Is this: small daily improvements when done consistently over time lead to stunning results. I'll repeat it again because it's so important. Small, daily, seemingly insignificant improvements when done consistently over time lead to stunning results. It's not what you do once a year that's important. It's what you do every day that will take you to world-class leadership and iconic production. So I guess what I'm saying is Apple, Amazon, General Electric, Nike, Under Armour, Whole Foods, Starbucks, SoulCycle. What makes the great enterprises great is not what they do one sunny Friday afternoon that blew open the doors of world class. What makes great companies great, great athletes great, great artists great, great writers great, great humanitarians great, great leaders great, is mundanity. It's the little rituals and routines that you do every single day that over time create a tsunami of world class. And this isn't the episode for me to share those routines, but you know about my 5 a.m. club that I've been teaching for going into my 3rd decade. I wrote about it first in The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. You know about the 1991 rule. I've shared it fully available in one of these mastery sessions. You know about the 2 massage protocol. I've shared it in a previous mastery session. You know about the 60-second student. I've given you that in a previous mastery session. All these proprietary methods that I teach from the stage at a much deeper level at Personal and Mastery Academy and at my flagship event. It's one of the hottest live events in the world. Richard Branson has been in the room. The co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, was in the room, as I've mentioned. The NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal was at a previous Titan Summit. I've been running the Titan Summit for many years. I teach these events these rituals at a much deeper level. The key is simply this: remember to institutionalize the right habits, the right routines, and the right rituals. Because what makes super producers is less about their DNA and what they were born into and their so-called gifts, and much more about their daily habits. Rule number 6 to live a monumental life is walk the earth gently and gracefully. You know, the heroes that I admire aren't less ego and more human. The leaders and heroes that I truly do my very best to learn from and emulate in my own unique way. I agree, I've got a long way to go. I'm on a journey. I'm a work in progress, but I work so hard on my character, my integrity, my grace, my compassion, my understanding, because it's from the inside that you live in the outer world, whether it's your outer creativity, productivity, leadership, and impact. It all does begin within. The point I'm trying to offer to you is this: when you walk the earth for however long you get to live, because life is a very short ride, and life, I've learned, can change in a day. You could go visit a doctor to get a routine medical result from a blood test, and the doctor could say, you better come in today at 2 o'clock. And you might find you have 90 days left to live. One of my favorite books is Chasing Daylight. That's what happened to that hero of business. My larger point is this: no matter how long you have left to live, walk with grace, walk with gentleness. I am here to tell you, in a world or a society and culture that celebrates how many social media followers you have, and how loudly you can talk, and how strongly you can beat your leadership message on your chest. And it's the person who, in a society or culture, whoever has the best super yacht, the fastest Gulfstream, the largest watch, and the most money wins. I am here to suggest to you, because you wouldn't be following me if you didn't subscribe to my philosophy. And it's not mine, but it's a different philosophy. It's the philosophy of the true legends. And they don't care about those things that society is hypnotizing us into believing. And the true legends, I just want to validate for you, they run a completely different race. And it's this: it's walking the world with true leadership. It's walking the planet not with fake power born of outer things, but real power born of inner understanding, knowing your gifts, living your values, and having the bravery every day in a messy world to say, here's who I am. Walking the world with compassion, treating people with understanding, kindness, and love. Spending time in solitude and nature. Treating the environment. I haven't talked a lot about the environment. I was behind someone in a car yesterday. They threw their cigarette butt out on the street. I said to my son, I said, this is Mother Earth. You've probably never heard me talk like this, but it's Mother Earth, and we're destroying it. Look at all the hurricanes. Look at what's happened to the environment. the Native American Indians gave away their land because their philosophy is you don't own the land. The land is something we are graced to walk on, and we have to protect it. So treat people well, treat nature well, treat humanity well. That is true leadership. Please don't be confused by those other things. Okay, so that brings me to rule number 7 for living a monumental life, which is to be radically helpful. So I've pretty much brought you in under the kimono, so to speak, in this episode. So why don't I share one of my morning affirmations? And it's simply this: how may I best serve the most people? I'll repeat that again in case it's helpful to you. How may I best serve the most people? And that way I keep on recalibrating my mindset and my heart set and my health set in some ways and my soul set to live for a mighty mission that is larger than my own ego. My dad has been an incredible influence in my life, and I always want to give credit where it's due. And one of the things he always shared with me, it was the words of the Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore when I was growing up. And Tagore said, "When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice." So let's not be confused again about what's most important. Be radically helpful. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, Robin. How do I become radically helpful? Well, you create products that are at such genius level. They create revolutions of value for your customers. Well, Robin, I'm just a parent. Does this apply to me? Absolutely. Be radically helpful in the raising of those beautiful children that you have. So they go out into the world and they're not only great at what they do, but they have heart and they know how to listen and they can have a conversation in a world where a lot of people no longer, seriously, a lot of people don't know how to have a conversation anymore. Immediately they go right to their white screen of their technology. You might say, Robin, I'm a taxi driver in India or Colombia, or I'm a air conditioner technician in Tokyo, or I'm a manager in Stockholm. Does that apply to me? I'm not a humanitarian. Well, if you were to look at the dictionary definition of a humanitarian, it's simply this: one who is concerned for the welfare of humanity. And whatever your work is, the more you can say, how can my work be a service? You know, you're working in a grocery store, or you're a farmer. I love farmers. Your food gives people nutrition. Your food creates magic around the dinner table. And when you connect, I wrote a book many years ago, 20 years ago, called Leadership Wisdom from the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And one of the first titles was Link Paycheck to Purpose. In other words, knowing your compelling cause. When you find a cause that's larger than your life, then you develop the emotional fieriness to take a bullet for your mission, which is how the great entrepreneurs and the great super producers do it. It's not cash, it's connection. It's not income, it's impact. 8th rule for a monumental life is get great at your craft. Look, you have a gargantuan competitive advantage because most people are caught up or card-carrying members, and I say this with respect, but it's reporting reality. Most people in the world right now in business are card-carrying members of the cult of mediocrity. In a previous episode, and I share this in my leadership presentations, I believe the world today is suffering, and that word, I'm choosing it consciously and carefully, from the collective deprofessionalization of business. A little while ago, I was in an airport. There was an elevator repairman, and he had his boombox cranking out hard rock. Well, that's fine, but he's at work. He's not at home. I go into a store these days. There are people listening to music out loud when they should be taking care of customers. You walk into an airport and you see people behind the desk or whatever, rather than being pros, owning the game, you literally see them chit-chatting Or again, looking at videos of dancing cats and people riding bicycles off the roofs of their houses. You know what I'm talking about. I call it the collective deprofessionalization of business. Very few people, relatively speaking right now, say, this is my craft. I've got to be a pro. I've got to study the audiobooks that relate to my game. I've got to find mentors. I've got to read the books. I've got to practice like Federer or Serena Williams or Muhammad Ali used to practice. You know what Muhammad Ali once said? He said, I hated every single one of those early morning runs, but I loved the idea of being champion of the world. You know, you get into a cab these days, and a lot of time I love silence. And I hear, mana, 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 mana. I shared this story from the stage at Personal Mastery Academy a few months ago, and so I wanted to share it here with you. And I'm just like, what is that noise? And you look over and you see people chatting, the cab driver chatting with their friends from other nations, their family members. Well, here's what the science says. The science says if you're chatting on a phone, it's like having 1 to 2 glasses of alcohol. So first of all, my safety or your safety is being influenced. Secondly, that person is being paid by you to deliver a professional service, not to chit-chat with their family. They can take a break or do it on their lunch break or do it at home. When I am doing my work, I'm not chit-chatting with my family because I'm being paid by a client to serve the client. When I'm here with you, I want to wow you, serve you, influence you, impact you, transform you. I'm not chatting with my friends. I hope I'm making a larger point. I think I am. This is the world right now. People no longer have a clear boundary between their professional life and their personal life. And so for the 5% of performers who understand when you go to work, it's showtime. Be a professional. You'll get paid more. You will win. People will fall in love with you. And that taxi driver, if he built a relationship, drove carefully, made sure his cab was clean, I'd be happy to give him a massive tip because I tip taxi drivers and hotel room cleaners really, really well. Final rule number 9 of living a monumental life, have fun. You know, if you take yourself too seriously, no one is going to take you seriously. No one knows how long we get to live, and even the longest life is a really short ride. So make sure you find some time to laugh during your day. Make sure you strip out the energy vampires from your life because that's a game-changing move, you know. The moment you start releasing the energy vampires who steal your joy and who are just negative and who don't support you, and here's the key, they don't understand you, so they think you're weird. When you say, you're not bad, you're just not right for me, your life becomes positive. And your life becomes stable. No more drama. Someone once said drama mamas, and that applies to men too. Get rid of the drama mamas. Get rid of the energy vampires. Get rid of the toxic people. Watch your life multiply in creativity, energy, productivity, humanity, so you rise to legendary. Well, I've shared a lot of content in this episode. If it has been valuable to you, all I ask is this. Within the next 60 minutes, share it with 3 of your friends so we spread this powerful message and make the world a vastly better place. Number 2, as I look at my social media feed and all the DMs and talk to my teammates at the office, a lot of people are saying, Robin, we've heard so much about your 2-day live event, Personal Mastery Academy, that has created so many revolutions of transformation for so many people across the planet. We've heard of your flagship event, the Titan Summit, where Richard Branson has been there, and Shaq and Steve Wozniak and some of the best global leaders on growing a great company and exponential longevity and being a history maker. How do we get in? Because you never really tell us where the details are. Here are the details in case you're interested. Hopefully it'll be helpful. RobinSharma.com. Simple. RobinSharma.com. Or you can go to the event sites, PersonalMasteryAcademy.com. and get on the waiting list. Sells out every year. PersonalMasteryAcademy.com. And if you're interested in the Titan Summit, sells out every year. It's become one of the hottest high-level events in the world for empire makers and history creators. If that's you and you're ready, get on the waiting list at thetitansummit.com. That's thetitansummit.com or robinsharma.com. Finally, a lot of people say, Robin, I love what you share in your podcast. How do we get more of it? Is there an opportunity for you to coach us? Well, there is now. It's called robinsharmanation.com. It's my monthly online coaching program. People have been asking for this for 20 years. Robin, well, we can't, our budget doesn't allow for us to work with you one-on-one, or even the Titan Summit is beyond us at this point. We want to get in the future. It's an aspirational goal. Can you help us right now? Absolutely. The answer is now yes. robinsharmanation.com. I'll coach you every single month on this kind of material. So you hardwire it so it becomes automatic. So you lead the field, and so you literally begin the process of creating a life that is legendary. If this is you, and if you're ready, I'd love to help you. Just go over to robinsharma.com or robinsharmanation.com, and my team and I would love to help you. Thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next mastery session. Remember, there are no extra people on the planet today. The very fact that you are alive means you are built for your own unique original form of greatness. Go for world class. I love you a lot. Stay great. Hi, this is Robin Sharma. I hope you received great value from this mastery session. If you'd like to receive potent training videos, blog posts, learning tools, and information on my 2 live events, Personal Mastery Academy and my flagship 4-day experience, the Titan Summit, go ahead and visit robinsharma.com.